Namaskar and welcome to episode number 27 of Understanding Consciousness podcast, where we try to understand the workings of the mind. We try to figure out the latest theories and understanding from all over the world, from different fields, and what they tell us about the mind. The current topic of interest for us is Karl Friston. Karl Friston and his work on the free energy principle. He has a lot of papers that we have been going through. He has a lot of videos online trying to explain the free energy principle, the active inference, the predictive coding, Bayesian model evidence, Bayesian brain, Markov blanket, Helmholtz machine, conscious, unconscious inference from the Helmholtz machine. And we have been going through a lot of these terms on the podcast also. We started with the first time we started. Realizing that the free energy principle is something to be understood on this podcast was when we were reading the paper on active inference. Active inference. What is that? What is active inference? This is the problem I have with this podcast. All right, I'll lay it bare in front of you. I am trying to understand consciousness, and every episode is a little bit more understanding, a little bit more of that understanding, I should say. And for the last few weeks, I have been struggling with the structure of how to continue on this path without without trying to explain the same things again and again, because I expect people to not go back and listen to every one of them. As a matter of fact, I don't expect people to listen to this anyway, so why am I even worrying about anything? But for the sake of believing that you're doing something useful, I need to have a structure. I need to have at least some chance that some listener is going to listen to this. And I want to give them a chance to not get confused in all the terms that I'm using that I haven't explained. But the thing is, the topic is something which is. I'm not an expert. This podcast is not by an expert. So if you are listening and you really want to understand things, don't listen to this one. But if you want to go on a journey and understand how I am trying to make sense of it and play around with these ideas and mess around with them. And more importantly, I think where my value enters here is that I have a personal agenda with this podcast, which is that I want to understand learning. How can I learn better? How can I learn things, anything, better than I do by understanding how the brain works, how the subconscious mind works? When you are learning, a lot of the work is done by the subconscious mind, no matter what you learn. Cycling, slacklining, learning a musical instrument, learning driving. A lot of these things require the subconscious mind. I mean, all of them. That's isn't that learning by definition? That you instead of trying to do something consciously, you're able to do it subconsciously very quickly, easily. And this is a pursuit to understand the mind and then try to apply it back. So if you are a listener and you want to also figure out how these new understandings can help in learning, I think that should be my main aim for the podcast. And this is what I was thinking about in the last few weeks. what is my value in this podcast? And I think this is where I can input some value. Having said that, I still have to go through some uncomfortable things and some uncomfortable moments where I'm trying to figure out how to explain things. And I think that's natural. That actually, at least, another side of trying to learn about learning is an expose on a learning experience. If you go through someone else's learning experience through some audio video way, you might get something out of it. And I think there is a lot of room for it, because I understand that people really like to see people stream, which is essentially this thing, a live performance of a person going through something. This is not live. This is not. I'll be editing this and all in order to spare you all from the worst of this, but most of it is kind of live, other than different from my other projects, which I need a lot more editing on. So these are the terms that I understood. Let's go through the terms that I understood and terms that I came across. So Karl Friston has a very interesting 15-minute long video explaining the free energy principle, where he starts explaining what is the free energy principle and where did it come from. Well, the free energy principle, of course, we have discussed this many times on the podcast, but my latest understanding is that any system, this is how Carl Friston starts. He talks about any system that behaves as a self-regulating system, any system that he talks about this drop of ink falling in water. Let's say you you put a drop of ink in water, and it starts mixing with water. But if you see it recollect into that drop again, you would say that there is something very lifelike about that. There's something very self-organizing. If the drop, instead of forever mixing into the water, kind of comes back and starts breathing in and out, you would say that that's a system which behaves as a self-regulating system. It's trying to fight against the nature of the things to go random. Randomness is the reality of things. Everything is going towards randomness. We are all doomed, as per the second law of thermodynamics. But there are these systems like us. We are that system that kind of try to fight back against randomness, but at the expense of a lot of energy expenditure. Right? Any system that has that property of self-regulation, any system has to have a model of the world in it. It has to have some way of understanding its immediate surroundings, and it needs to have a model of that thing. That's the claim. And the claim is actually, this is one of the claims. The other claim is that it's actually not only is it possible, but it's inevitable. It's inevitable that is always going to happen. So I learned about the free energy principle. Actually is a term that comes from systems neuroscience. That's what he talks about. Systems neuroscience, the free energy principle. Free energy principle, it says that any such system that is self-regulating is going to minimize free energy. Minimize free energy. In this case, minimizing free energy is minimizing the surprise, the entropy. Free energy is a term from is I think a term from thermodynamics as well, um, where entropy, minimizing entropy is like minimizing free energy. You have to, entropy is the surprise. It's like when you lose information, information becomes surprise. Like information theory, the less we know about the system, the more entropy it has about from our point of view. All right, all these concepts might be confusing for people who are not really well accustomed to this, but the main point that I'm trying to emphasize is that the new theory is that the new theory, no, it's not the new theory, it's the current understanding of the mind, the subconscious mind, is that it's like a Bayesian engine which takes in which has a prior model of the word, the prior, a priori, the prior understanding. It takes new data and uses those data to change the model, to fix the model, so that the subsequent data that are going to come next are less surprising than current data, than currently possible. So it's always trying to improve this model of the world, and that is learning. That is the essence of learning. So if our brain is a Bayesian brain, it's like a perfect scientist. It's taking in each data point and tries to fix the worldview accordingly. That's what scientists do. That's what formal science does. He talks about something called the Markov blanket, which is very fascinating. The Markov blanket. This term actually comes from the artificial intelligence side of things, the machine learning. And I don't know much about it except the fact that a Markov blanket can be seen as a barrier between the inside and the outside of an organism. And the state, there's an ingoing thing and there's an outgoing thing. The ingoing thing is the sensation, the sensations that come in, the data that are coming in from the outside is the sensation, and the action is something that is necessary for this Bayesian engine, because actions that go out from the system to the environment, they are required to get better priors, required to change the surroundings so that it's easier to predict it. Got it? I don't know. Got it. It's not like I'm explaining it very nicely, but this is the one point that is I'm getting more and more comfortable with as I go along. A brain is a Bayesian brain. We have this Bayesian brain. He also talks about embodied cognition, which is a very fascinating field, and I think I'll make some video on that soon. And then talks about model evidence. The model evidence is basically the you have to maximize model evidence. That Bayesian brain is trying to maximize the accuracy of that model and minimize surprise. Surprise is anything. Too much surprise is death of the organism. I know we like surprises as human beings. We love surprises. Surprise. We love you. But a surprise in terms of survival can be really bad, because if you hadn't predicted something, a meteor hitting the earth is a surprise. not a good one. So for survival, it's necessary to minimize surprise. Okay, so that's the other thing. The most interesting thing and the next path of understanding is that he talks about how this principle, this free energy principle, that the mind is trying to minimize this surprise. This principle can be seen in the biology of different systems. It can be seen, it can be witnessed in action, in the way our minds work, in the way our other organisms work. And there are a lot of examples. This is one of the papers that I've been studying, and I haven't gone through those examples, but I intend to pretty soon because it's really interesting. And that's where I think I'll have some real understanding of it. Anyway, apart from instead of wasting time, I should tell you how this now fixes how this how this new information gives me more understanding of how to learn. And this is where I think it's not science yet, science of learning. I don't think there is many. There is a lot of research on that. Of course, there is from terms of neuroscience, but in terms of first person learning, it's all about, it's been very self-helpish, how to learn, the art of learning. And yes, I mean, this, what I'm going to say is also going to be anecdotal and not very scientific, in the sense that it's not supported by, but it's a theory, it's a hypothesis. It's if our brain is a Bayesian brain, if our brain is this machine that's trying to get more evidence of the outside world, let's say then that let's say I'm trying to learn, I've actually started to learn flute. So let's take this example. While I'm learning the flute, okay, while I'm learning it, my fingers are on the holes. My mouth is trying to make a sound which is initially very hard to produce, because you have to kind of find the thing, the spot. While you're doing that, it must help to be completely and utterly undistracted and just feel every sensation that you are feeling. Feel every sensation closely and as clearly as you can. Do not try to get lost in thoughts. Do not try to think it through. Do not try to reason with it too much. All you have to do is get undistracted, unmodified as much as possible, unfiltered data, and give those data and let the subconscious mind receive those data, and just get out of your own way and let the Bayesian brain do its magic. And you'll realize, in 15 minutes and half an hour of doing that, 15 minutes to half an hour of doing that, you will be able to produce all the sounds, just that. And you can experiment that. You can give this flute to any new person who's learning the flute and tell them, just do this. And maybe we should do this experiment. It's easy to do. But this is what I learned. Like, overthinking on what you're learning might not be the best way to learn. Let the subconscious mind kind of take it easy, and take it unchanged, and just give it, just no judgment, maybe judgment is required. Maybe we shouldn't be too aggressive about this philosophy. But there's this philosophy, this underlying something that resonates with me: focus and determination. Sorry, focus, discipline, and curiosity. Those three things, and they gel with this Bayesian brain idea. So let me know if you get anything out of this. Anyone who's listening out there, just send me a message through whatever. Um, Listen to this on bonobocollective.com. I'm going to add contact page on that, or maybe some comment section, discussion section, or you can listen to it on YouTube and maybe comment there. Understanding Consciousness podcast, you can search on YouTube. Thanks for listening. Hope you get something out of it. I hope I learn something more and give a better presentation of all these ideas once I understand them. And thanks for listening. And have a good day.